United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They might not have heard.
Mrs. Boyd,
Yes.
Mrs. Hunter,
Here.
Mrs. Giro. She's having technical difficulties at the moment. Mr. Harriman,
Here.
Mrs. Barat,
Here.
Mr. Mulaney, Mr. Marin,
Here.
Mr. McCabe,
Here.
Mrs. Moffett. We're waiting on her. Mr. Murdoch,
Here.
Mrs. Saunders. Here. Mrs. Sears,
Here.
Mr. Filling, Mr. St. Pierre,
Here.
Ms. Watton.
Here.
We have 11 board members present.
Right, and need a executive session, open by
Motion.
second, Mr. Harriman. Could you please give us the rules and then we'll do the.
President St. Pierre, yes, I will. Thank you. In executive session, we will discuss a recently received notice of claim involving a student matter. We'll be discussing a disciplinary matter involving an individual student, confidential. We'll also be discussing several labor relations matter, including some labor relations matters related to employment agreements. And also we'll be looking at some confidential contracts prior to their approval.
Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Our executive session.
Okay, we'll just give everyone a minute to get situated and then we'll
right. Back on the air. Okay, so we should start with our usual introductions. Start with Matt.
Ben Slattery, CVES.
Yep.
Michelle Hickman, CVES. Amy Campbell, CVES.
Eric Bell, CVS.
And move on to opinions and concerns from the audience. Anybody have anything that they'd like to bring forward? Huh?
Oh, I have.
Move on to the next one. Capital projects update.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Bell, our Assistant Superintendent of Management Services, to share a PowerPoint. And to all of our board members online, just give us a minute and then we'll be ready to move forward. Mr. Bell?
Excellent. Thank you. So tonight, Dr. Dave and I have a presentation for you, and our main goal tonight is to really update you on our phase two. We've been doing a lot of conversation about our phase two of our capital project, and now we want to provide more details. We're at a good point where we're starting to work on our scope. So jumping right into this. Our program. Working well. Here we go. So the first thing that we need to talk about is financially, what are we looking at? How much money in a phase two capital project? Because that's going to drive what can we do. So we're estimating at this point in time, and it's an estimate, and the numbers, I'm rounding it to $6.5 million is what we're looking at in phase two. Where's that money coming from? About 5 million we're projecting for phase one. Realize phase one is still ongoing. We know we have change orders that potentially are coming for plumbing matters and potentially other ones. In the pipeline, we're giving an estimate about 5 million as of this moment is our best approximate estimate. Our infrastructure project, which was our exterior doors at our Plattsburgh main campus, as well as our water line, we're having remaining funds of $115,000. Our fire alarm project, about $29,000 remaining. And then our mini capital project budgets. So our current year, we're not planning any mini capital projects. Our goal is to move that money into the main capital project so that it can be part of phase two. Our recommendation to this board would be that we increase the voter-approved capital budget, and we're targeting for May, and you'll see that at the end, by these three numbers, 448, 470, 470. In the proposed budget that was shared last board meeting, we are proposing next school year mini capital project budget. We call it a mini capital budget. What it is annual appropriations for capital projects. That's truly what it is. It's in our capital and rent budget, $470,000. That is no increase to school districts. Our capital and rent budget is 474. So a large portion of that is capital projects because we don't have ISC anymore. That used to be our biggest chunk. So $470,000 over the next 2 years. Our ask of the board would be to increase our capital project in May. That locks that money up. So as long as we can put forward the budgets at this level, we will have the money and the appropriations available. Our construction, we're looking at wrapping up in the summer and fall of 23. So that flows into the 23-24 year. That's why we would be scooping up 2 years down the road. So prioritizing construction, that is the name of the game at this point in time. First, we wanted to find what our capital project needs. Facilities Advisory Committee did all that work for us, right, early on. Our building condition survey did that for us. Some other items have risen up as we found our challenges or issues that we need to address. So we took all those into consideration to compile the list. We cannot afford to do all the work identified. What they say is, don't overpromise, don't promise to move. Our goal tonight is to show you what our needs are. I am telling you that is well above and beyond $6.5 million. We can't come close to doing all this work. But we want to make sure that the board's aware of what those needs are on our priority list, because we need to be planning for 10 years of getting capital project work done and have a long-term plan to address these items. They're on our list. We need to do them. They need to be at our attention. Realize that if it's on here, that does not mean it's part of phase two. Can't say that enough. We're just identifying the areas. We need to prioritize that. and I'll explain how we're gonna prioritize at the end. Mineville Campus is where we want to start. We're in Mineville, great place to start. So we're looking at the number one item on this list. This is not a priority list, so I shouldn't have said number one, but the top of this list is whole building generator. That will be a consistent theme tonight at every single campus. We have hundreds and in some places thousands of students in our building that are put at risk, and it's a safety issue when we lose power, and we have done it frequently at our Mineville campus and our Plattsburgh campuses. And we want to address that with whole building generators. If we're gonna have this many students here, we need to be able to educate them, even if the power goes out. It's a huge disruption to what we do. You're gonna see a constant theme, and I will tell you right now, that's one of our biggest priorities for phase two. Mineville campus, North Building at the satellite campus, and our Plattsburgh main campus. Upgrade electrical panel boxes, central cooling, replace the flooring, exterior building lights, upgrade building automation controls, replace unit ventilators and control radiators. You want $6 million? That's probably $6 million right there in front of you. So again, we want to highlight areas that we know at this building we need to take advantage of. The other thing is that's not on here is finishing our LED lighting, and I'll show you some O&M items as well for this building later on. Satellite campus North Building, smaller list, whole building generator, and then also we have a long-term goal of removing that large hangar door on the south side of our North Building and convert that into large overhead doors. Energy efficiency, efficiency of use. I can go on reasons why we're looking at that. High cost item, but something that's on our target list. We look at the south building, same thing there. We want to remove that overhead, that old hangar door. Energy efficiency is huge in that space. It's really worse than the north building. That also impacts the adjacent space. So currently we have a large space that's being used as storage, and we're looking at future use of that space that we're going to be ongoing in discussions during design of what do we use that space for. But you can't use it for anything other than storage unless you replace that door. So that'll be part of the conversation, reconfiguring that remaining hangar space, plumbing infrastructure if needed. Hopefully we can take care of all that in phase one, and then build out second floor, which could include offices, bathrooms, classroom or classrooms, and potential meeting space. Plattsburgh main campus, whole building generator, exterior window replacement, center cooling in our special ed division, pool deck replacement, replace the discovered BX cable. You may recall that we've already done 50% of WAF replaced. Got to finish the rest. So that again, well, that'll ultimately raise up to a priority because we're now aware of it. Let's address it. Replace all the glass storefront doors. So in that building, every door that was tied to a classroom, O&M closet, cafeteria, that wasn't a glass door was replaced as part of our infrastructure project. The remaining doors to do were all of our entry and exit spots that have the storefront, we call it, which is your glass entry doors, entry exit doors. Building wide. Replace existing boilers, replace mounted fan coil units, FCUs at the main entrances of the building, electrical panel box upgrades, and convert old bathrooms to office space. That was the capital project items. Some of the items that rose to a capital project list from our team or facilities advisory committee or building condition survey, we know we can't afford what I just showed you. So we want to come up with a plan. What can we address with just our in-house team? Because we got a pretty talented crew, and our operating and maintenance team has been unreal over the last few years of showing what they can do. So through our O&M budget, we want to have paving improvements here at the Mineville campus, paving improvements at our Plattsburgh campus, sidewalk replacement at our Plattsburgh campus, ceiling tile replacement. Everybody's going to look up and you can see why that's on the list. In Mineville and Plattsburgh, we're looking at whole building, ceiling tile replacement, pool ceiling and lighting replacement in our pool area is in really rough shape. So we're replacing that. Classroom flooring replacement, it's plural. So we're working on having our O&M team do that across our building. Culinary kitchen renovations and exterior painting at our north building. Those are some of our, I would say that's probably 50% of the list for our O&M team. They have a large list that they're trying to address. Over the course, you got to realize this is over the course of a couple of years is our target with that. So $6.5 million phase two. We showed you items. We don't know what that amount's going to be, and I'll get to how we're going to get to that amount. but we're assuming we're over 20 million, right? I probably just showed you over 20, really rough estimates. O&M is gonna take on some of that. Next is, what other options are out there to the BOCES? And we said we were gonna engage in conversations about potentially an energy performance contract. Could we do one? We didn't know. But what we want to be able to say to the board is, yeah, we could do one, or no, we can't. We have the answer today, and really the only answer we have right now is that, yes, we have the ability to do an energy performance contract. The estimated size of that project is $1.5 million based on the analysis of the energy savings we can have. But we don't have a lot of information on it. Our goal is to present something at the next board meeting of what the findings are. We are working with Danforth. Danforth was our mechanical contractor on our phase one. And we had a very strong working relationship with them. So we've actually went down this route with them. They're doing all of the research, all of the analysis. They're gonna share it with us. And ultimately, if the board wants to move forward with it, we would go out to RFP. So it's not Danforth's job. They're trying to convince us we should do it. And then they're hopeful that they can win that RFP process. So we're gonna present what they found from their site visits of what we could do. LED lights, so finishing those out, we've done a majority of them, but finish out doing the LED lights. Boilers, we're talking to them about windows, central cooling, right? Some of those things that you just saw on that previous list, we're talking with Danforth about is, could we put those into an EPC? So we have a need, how can we figure it out? That's what we're trying to do. So potentially two parallel projects, we'd be running phase two and an EPC. Again, this is preliminary, nothing's moving forward, more information coming.
Where does this get funded from?
So majority of it's funded by aid, and then the remaining amount is funded by energy savings. So they're gonna show us, what they'll do is they'll present how their work cost will be done through a lease purchase agreement. So that way we can't take out bonds as a BOCES. We're not allowed to borrow money. So we do a lease purchase agreement through whatever the vendor is for the EPC. And they're gonna show us that the energy savings we have in that year and the BOCES aid on that cost will cover that annual lease purchase agreement amount. So what do we do next? Right now, Tetra Tech is reviewing that list we gave you to come up with some preliminary design ideas for those items. They're then gonna send it to schoolhouse construction. In front of the board tonight is schoolhouse construction's contract. We're hopeful that the board will support it. We have estimating, a third-party estimator built into that and an amount for them to take those priority list items, give us preliminary estimate numbers, give us costs of what an actual estimator can give you, tell us what those amounts are. Because we can't truly prioritize a list for a $6.5 million capital project without knowing what they cost. And we're fishing blind right now. They're gonna give us those numbers. Once we have the numbers, we then tell Tetra Tech, all right, this is what you want, we want you to build for bid day. And then add these alternates in, so we're gonna push the envelope. So we'll have our bid scope, we'll have alternates, which would be above that $6.5 million project. So as pie in the sky, maybe we could get it, maybe we can't. And we're gonna move that forward through the SEB process, bidding process, do it through phase one. We're also at the same time, hopefully coming to you in April, when this is all shaken out and saying, are we gonna do an EPC or not? And some of that scope might get pulled into the EPC and pulled out of that phase two. So we're gonna be working this side by side parallel through the process. So we're gonna rely heavily on schoolhouse's estimates to help us in our priority of this work. But again, at the end of the day, all that scope of work we wanna get done. So somehow, some way, we wanna work with the board to have a long-term plan to accomplish all of that. So capital project budget increase I had mentioned, we're targeting a May resolution for that. So we'll bring you those annual capital project appropriations to add to the voter approved capital project budget. Submittal SED summer of 22. Tetra Tech's telling us really early fall is where we may end up landing. Our push and our goal is to really strive and try to submit in the summer and then construction summer of 2023.
And I think, Mr. Bell, one of the points, just to confirm, that with a parallel EPC project, there are items that would have been included in the phase two that could be covered in the EPC, which would allow us to do additional items that, so it's really combining the two. So instead of a $6.5 million project, we'd be looking at $7.5 to $8 million worth of work that could be combined. And for our board members who've been on the whole time and remember this whole process, one of the questions that came up with the Facilities Advisory Committee and also in our discussions when we went on tour was, did you consider an EPC as part of this as to save us money? So for our component districts, we're actually checking both boxes to say, yes, we're aligning this, and B, we are following through on something that we indicated both to our internal Facilities Advisory Committee and our components that we would be looking at.
Eric, are there any districts we can point to that had performance contracts and what the outcome was? Was there a cost savings or not?
Yeah, there's been a number across the state, so there's good and bad in EPCs. I've been a part of one with fellow board member, one of your fellow board members that's on this call. What we've seen across the state, I guess I'll phrase it this way, is that it depends on who you do the EPC with. So an example is if you do an EPC with a controls company, what they're gonna do is they're gonna build you a system with all their controls in it. They're gonna run the whole project. They help you design it. They are the general contractor, and they sub out all the work underneath them. They're really focused on funneling everything you do through them, right? If it's Johnson Controls, Siemens, any of those. Why we're working preliminary with Danforth is that they're truly a mechanical contractor. So they're not selling us Danforth controls. They're not selling us Danforth's HVAC equipment. We can go to them and say, all right, these are the types of equipment we have. We want to stay aligned. These are our boilers. This is the type of brand of boiler we have. This is the type of AC we have. This air handling unit we have. That's the difference between who we're working with, because we've seen a lot of the issues happen if you work with a Sloan or different vendor who are trans, who does the air conditioning. If you work with a supplier, they tend to tailor everything around generating them more money in business. We're hesitant here. There's other people out there, some former BOCES employees who actually have a lot of experience in EPC that we've been in touch with to make sure that we benefit and set up our contract appropriately. The other piece to an EPC is those guarantees. So what you're referencing is, were there truly savings? In your contract, they will put language that you get certain guarantees for savings and you track them. If you don't get the savings, the company must pay you as an organization. There's certain ways that needs to be written to make sure that you protect ourselves. So those are the things that if we pursue this route, we need to check those boxes along the way to protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just bring it up because I remember a number of years ago now, at Keene, we had one and we had mixed, results as a result. I don't know. It seems my recollection is that controls part of it was where they didn't measure up to they didn't deliver the efficiencies that we thought we were expecting, and I remembered we kind of terminated early.
Mm-hmm. Usually what
So I
happens
just-
is they try to blame it on the other equipment, though.
Yeah.
Not on their control.
Yeah.
We did one here was it like 15 years ago or so, remember?
Yep, it's been done here.
Yeah.
Under Mr. King.
Yeah.
And does anyone know how that turned out? Did it work out? Did we come out?
And my recollection is that it happened here as well. We were encouraged to do it down there, I think, because following suit here. And then I don't remember exactly how it worked out here, but I know we had some issues with it.
Yeah, so I don't remember that there was a big problem, but I don't know if we actually saved money or not.
Yeah.
I did talk to Christine Myers about it because she was here when it happened.
Okay.
She said going through it was a really big challenge, but once it was done, they were thankful it was over, and they did actually see the savings from doing it. It's just that construction piece was a big challenge, and again, that's why it's huge. Is who are you doing the EPC with? And as part of this, we would still want to have some type of support alongside, whether it's a schoolhouse construction, supporting really most likely the schoolhouse as a construction managing company. We would want them to support this as well. So that's not part of their current contract in front of you, but that would be something. If we do an EPC, we want a third party independent that can keep a watchful eye on that construction.
What's the likelihood that you can they signed a contract where if they didn't deliver, you would get compensated for any shortfall.
I've heard it's happening. Yeah, that's what they do. And I've actually heard that they have made payment on it. Yep. Because you take basically what you do is you take your electric bills, you take your natural gas bills, depending if you have natural gas or you want propane. And you show them, this was my annual bill, we didn't get the savings. You get big challenges because they say a shift in you have more people or you have more use of your billing, but I have seen people actually win that case and get paid. Yep.
It's usually a fight club.
Yes. It's always.
And they don't volunteer to pay
Always a fight.
some extra money.
Yep.
I think most of them run, what, 15 to 20 years also?
18, I believe is usually what it is, yeah. Because that's your payback. SCD says to do an EPC, you have to do it for, it has to be an 18-year payback cycle.
Okay.
Understood. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Welcome. So I believe we're ready to do your superintendent's update.
Sure, for the district superintendent's update, I will be just talking briefly about a PowerPoint presentation, but just to walk through the items. And as the board is aware, and we've kept you all informed, that our schools are now in an optional masking frame and under the guidance. We have shared information through with the CDC guidance that's using the CDC community rate of transmission to help determine the low, medium, and high rates within New York State and by county. Originally, Essex County, thank you, was a medium, and Clinton County was high when the guidance came out, and we were Clinton County was one of 11 counties in the state, including Franklin and St. Lawrence, that were in the high category. And the guidance did say that those counties that were in a high rate could determine masking, whether it's optional or not. The counties that were low and medium on the community rate, there was no question they were moving to optional masking. The health department in Clinton County worked with the chief school officers in Clinton County, and they made the recommendation. They did ask what the opinion was, but they made the recommendation and decision to say we're going to make masking optional. Franklin County and St. Lawrence County both did the same. A day after that decision and was implemented on actually the 3rd of March. So the guidance started on March 2nd, on March 3rd, in the evening, and I sent the board an email with a map that showed that the new CDC guidance did say that Clinton County was then had moved to medium rate. Franklin was still medium as well, and St. Lawrence had moved to low. So the rooftop counties, there was, progress. So all the counties in New York State, there are 62 counties, and all counties were either in low or medium transmission rates. So masking per that guidance has been optional since that point in the entire state. Thought that was very interesting, and I have to say hats off to our team. We had Mrs. Campbell help facilitate with Mr. Bell and our divisional leaders, conversations with our administrators as well. And our staff, you've seen pictures and other things move forward. And I will say there was a lot of positive feeling as this moved forward. To see everyone's faces, we do have some individuals who are still wearing masks, and we embrace that. That's a choice, and it's something that we honor. And it was very important that we stress that this is going to be a personal choice, and what parents and children want and the students want, we want to support. And so with that being said, we made sure that was the message that was put out. I'll just defer to my colleagues for a minute. Any comments, and then I'll move forward to be brief with mine. Any comments as we move forward into the optional masking mode?
If I can just add, students and staff have embraced not having masks just for the physical interactions, communication. A much smaller percentage of what's heard versus what's communicated with body language. So to be able to see the smiling faces, to see those lips moving, it's been reinvigorating, during the challenging years. So it's welcome, and the numbers keep staying low, and that's exciting. So we're trending in the right direction.
What I'm seeing out in public, there's occasional people who are wearing masks. You can tell it's probably because they have health issues, they're older, or they just want to be cautious. But they're free to do it. And it's great to see that some people understand that masks are probably helpful, especially if they're prone to be easily, get sick. So, as far as I'm concerned, everybody has a choice and it's gonna work out. My viewpoint.
And kudos to our team, Mrs. Friedman, Mrs. Campbell. Any other comments?
I would agree with Matt. Just a funny little story. Adam invited me to go into one of the classrooms with the student that participated in Lobby Day to get the certificate that you said. So we went in and one girl said, "Oh my God, I've never seen your whole face." And it struck me because, I, of course, know that. But when you hear it, it struck me and it was, I'm like, I hope it's okay. Like, but it's really nice. It's just really nice to be greeted with a smile and give a smile. I mean, we're smiling all the time, but not necessarily.
Painted on the mask.
And I think after these 2 years, everybody can use a smile. And I think it's just a welcome shift.
I just read today, finally, they've had 2 studies that finally got finished, where they said in one study, it was 27% less transmission with the masks, because they compared to districts that didn't use masks. And then in another one, it was almost 70% difference in transmission rates with mask versus unmasked, which is startling, because there's been claims that it's hardly worth it. Where when you see numbers like that, you have
Well, at some point, CDC even said cloth masks were better than nothing, but not much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And of course, the masks have improved. If you can buy better quality ones, make that even better. Anyways.
One drawback to masks that I experienced 2 days ago. I went to get an eye exam, and the practitioner said, "Read those letters," And I said, right after the fog clears, I'll try to read them. You gotta take your mask over. You're not gonna be able to see that. Your eyes go downhill otherwise.
Exactly. So with that said, we want to acknowledge that and thank you for everyone's support. With that said, we are continuing to monitor the case trend very, very closely in Essex County. In the check-in meetings and Clinton County, we've now moved to bi-weekly meetings. So we are reserving that time, but having a check-in meeting every 2 weeks instead of every week. So we're moving in that direction, but everybody's being cautious and being a little tentative as we're moving forward. But again, in Clinton County the other day, yesterday, they reported 2 cases in the county. And yes, there could be some rapid tests where tests aren't being reported as much, but we're monitoring it all. But again, it's tied to the hospitalization rate. So I want you to know that we are going to be pausing our drive-up COVID testing that we've been operating. We were having some regular use of that, but we are going to be pausing that. And the health department for the ELC grant in Clinton County did suggest and ask that be opened up after the April break for I think 4 or 5 days to allow if anyone there was any transmission that they could come up and be tested. So we want you to be aware of that, and we'll continue to keep the staff informed as this goes on as well. I want to offer some special congratulations as well to CV Tech. And I know our divisions do great work. There was a couple of items that have received some great accolades as well. The Mad City Money Simulation, financial decision making, helping students to really interact with professionals and have to make this economic decisions that they're all going to be faced with someday. It was just a phenomenal event. We used our full facility in the conference center. Mrs. Friedman, it was just awesome. Fantastic. And I don't know if you want to just share anything and then also maybe just mention about the STEM partnership because there's some national attention.
Sure. Thank you. We're so excited to reinstate this vital opportunity for students in partnership with You First Credit Union, and it will be Time Credit Union that's now Trail North. When we do the simulation down here, later on in the month. So the students get to, get a job, the budget, and they have to, go to all of the stations, which they have their children, they gotta get a car, they gotta get daycare, they can get, an apartment or house, make those decisions, or a truck or a van. They can't opt to give the child back. Those little buggers are pretty expensive. So they do the simulation, and the goal is to have $100 of their budget left. But there was also opportunity for financial aid planning for college, and different opportunities for financial planning, and ultimately financial literacy. So all of our seniors went through that. And the hope is to expand to captivate our expertise within our organization, to have some of our other professionals who came to visit actually man some stations next year, because before we were at SUNY Plattsburgh. So it's a great opportunity. We've gotten some great feedback. I love the fact that I get to speak about it, but Sherry Snow is the point person on that, and her work makes it happen. She also put together for all of our students a sexual harassment prevention and discrimination prevention in the workplace that all of our students went through at the conference center a few weeks back as part of our ongoing employment seminars and series. So lots of neat things going on. The German STEM project that you guys have been kept abreast of, the North Country Workforce Development Board, who is on point with bringing this particular project forward, was asked to present at the National Workforce Development Conference in Washington in April. So we've been asked to present the project and the program on a national level. And we've been invited to the German embassy in Washington during that time frame, and also by Congresswoman Stefanik to speak to her about the partnership and the project and how it can be replicated across the state of New York, but also across the country. So, just great. It's really very exciting stuff.
Yep. Yes, thank you. So, and upcoming, especially with the optional masking, we're anticipating being much more in person with some different activities, including we'll have an NTHS, I believe, coming up. We'll also have some graduations. So they're starting to have some planning conversations about those. So we want you to really pay special attention to our dates as they're coming forward, because we'd love to have board members attend and really encourage that as well. It's one of the exciting points. So looking at a couple of other items, the board did receive electronically in the packet. For those of you that are here, you actually have a couple of copies of district superintendent highlights. Those are being shared with our superintendents tomorrow. I had a district superintendent's meeting. It was virtual. We will be moving in April to our in-person meetings, but there's quite a bit of information in there about the conversations. So, for example, the GED test that had been moved to what's known as the task. The task is being eliminated, and we're moving back to the GED test. So there's a new contract that's been approved. I know Mrs. Friedman, and I know our one work source is very aware of this and on the cutting edge of this happening, but we're coming back to that, the GED. With that being said, there's also other information in there about some of the key points about COVID. There's also various SED updates, and so on and so forth. But I wanted you to be aware, there are several BOCES committees that meet every month. There's a BOCES School Operations and Finance. There is a Standards and Assessment Committee, and there's also an Innovation Committee. So those are part of our regular monthly meetings. I work with the Innovation Committee. I also give at that meeting the DS liaison updates for both rural schools and also the New York State School Boards Association. So with that said, all that information is in here, and ask the board if you have questions as you look through it. We also have lobbying updates at every meeting. with both not only the New York State Council of School Superintendents, but also NISBA. So really, there's a lot of information, but again, it's being distributed across the entire state. There was also within the highlights, the NISBA, the New York State School Boards Association, and the RSA. That was linked to your transmittal as well with RSA. And you're looking at part of our conference planning team for this summer's conference. Did a phenomenal job. There were, I believe it was 22 or 24 proposals that we weaned down to approximately 24 to half a dozen. Mr. Bell and myself are both going to be presenting as part of that. So it might have been a little slanted, but I'm gonna, the team did support that. And we're looking forward to that. But we're excited about that, and our team did a great job. There were some very excellent proposals submitted. And actually our rural schools individual, the executive director and deputy director, said it was the strongest field of presentations that they've ever had, which is really exciting. So we do encourage board members to think about that. I know, Mr. Pierre, you attended this past year. I know, Mr. Harriman, you've been a regular attendee as well.
I'm gonna try going this year.
Yeah, I plan on going again. I found it to be very
I'll
useful.
talk to you about that.
Okay. Going for the first time. I thought it was a good thing to do.
It really is a great conference, and it's really focused on rural New York State.
I get more out of that than I would go into state convention or national. Because they're all big schools.
And thank you. And I will share with you with our New York State School Boards Association, there's two items that I want to share with that as well. In the discussion with their executive director, Bob Schneider, their deputy director, Jay Warona, who's also the attorney for the governmental relations individual as well. So there are multiple, leaders from NISBA. They encouraged our schools to make sure that we say thank you to the legislators for the foundation aid support we've been continuing to support. We're in year 2 of 3, and next year they plan to finalize that and complete the foundation aid promise that they have made. Said, make sure that you please acknowledge that, because our we've been asking for it for years and they're following through. The second piece was, they said that because of the number of turnovers in superintendents across the state, and the number of board changes that they think they're going to be seeing, NISBA is actually putting together a proposal to be able to have a leadership forum and a leadership process to be able to have superintendents and board presidents have some training that NISBA is sponsoring about how you maintain and have good board and superintendent relationships. To have good leadership. And so with that being said, I thought that was something that was really positive as well. So moving forward, the CEF briefing, and I'm going to be very brief with this, but to talk a little bit about some of the items. I did have the opportunity, and through my rural schools involvement, was invited to take part in a congressional briefing. So I did this virtually, and it was through an educational consulting and advocacy group out of Washington called the Committee for Education Funding, known as CEF. We had 149 individuals signed up, 74 of them were congressional staffers. So that's kind of exciting. I've never had that opportunity. What you're seeing on the screen, and will everyone see that, is
online should be able to see it, yes.
Okay. So I will just share with you very briefly, the focus was on teacher shortages and the impact that it's having. I'll just share with you a little bit of information. Those of you who are here, you actually have a copy. Just a little narrative about my background, my degrees and my experience as well, and then our BOCES as a whole. The next item is a statement that I made regarding the teacher shortage issue, especially given the 2 years of the pandemic that we've had. I think the last part really tries to bring it home that our schools and teachers are being called upon to support the heightened needs of our students, mental health and academic deficiencies that have been magnified. It really is a statewide emergency, and I'll talk about some of those numbers. It's something that we're not really talking about as much at a high level, and something that those of you who may remember years ago, there was something called Sputnik that caused a huge impact in education, and saying that another country was ahead of America. And so there was a lot of money that went into education at that point because of that, to try to remedy that. And I believe that we're moving in that direction now, that we do have a major issue with that. I'll just share with you as I presented, shared a little bit of information and I blended some various information out of briefings and other such to share with you where we are as a part of New York State, but also to say, using the census data, what's the New York State population from 2020 and how much of it is rural? So just to share with everyone where we were, where we are. I'll share with you then a snapshot of rural New York. Again, this came from a legislative briefing or a rural briefing, that 25% of the land in New York State is actually still used for agriculture. Of that 25%, 35,000 farms make up that 25%, and 98% of those are family owned. The next piece is that there's a lot of diversity within New York, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but in New York versus the nation, we actually lead the nation in some agricultural products. Yogurt, cottage cheese, and sour cream. We're number 2 in apples. This is nationally. Apples, cabbage, snap peas, and maple syrup. And I think we contribute at CV Tech to that maple syrup production as well. So come on, CV Tech, we can move forward with that. But you also see milk, dairy cows, grapes, pears, squash, calves, onions, tart cherries, corn, and sweet corn. So with that being said, a little bit about background. So it's a snapshot and not a sales job, but to help people understand New York is a very diverse state. With that being said, yep, there we go. So what about New York and our diversity? It's rural, suburban, and urban. There are 731 school districts in New York State, and approximately 300 normally belong to rural schools. They're down a little bit this year with the pandemic, but it's normally 300 to 320. With that being said, in New York State schools, how many students do we have? Okay, snapshot. Roughly 2.6 million in our K-12 public schools, and there's 212, almost 213,000 teachers. And you can see the breakdown between male and female and what's the ethnicity of New York State school teachers. Next. What about the teacher pipeline? And this was from Dr. Bill Murphy, who's the Deputy Commissioner for Higher Education. In my conversation with him just before this PowerPoint was presented, he indicated that 10 years ago, there were 80,000 students in our teacher prep programs across our colleges. Today, there's only 40,000. He said there's some bright side to that, is that 25% of our students 10 years ago were reflected diversity. Now that number has increased to 40%. So that's good, because it's important to have teachers who reflect the students with whom they teach. But we also know that that's half what we used to have. And then lastly, as we move forward, a couple of areas too. Let's see, there we go. So what about teacher shortages in New York State? What are the areas? This is from a Board of Regents presentation in November. The areas which were identified out of the Board of Regents, and this is from a statewide survey, the sciences, social studies, special education, world languages, bilingual education, bilingual special education, career and tech education. Again, as well, Mrs. Friedman, we know that, as well as special education, a huge need. English language arts, health, education, and literacy. So there's a lot of vacancies in New York State. And I also determined and said, let's take a snapshot nationally, because there's a little blurb that said it came from ed.gov. So we looked at it nationally. And for example, I looked at each one of those areas and we picked just 5 to 10 different states. And you said, okay, in Michigan, in Florida, in Texas, in Ohio, in Oregon, these are the same states that have the same shortages. Just a snapshot. So you've got something geographically. In Maine, we use Florida, we use Tennessee, we use Texas, we use Arizona, I believe California. So there were multiple states that I had and just had a list that had similar vacancies to what New York State had. And that was just a snapshot. So this is a huge issue. The vice chancellor from South Dakota indicated, she said, in some of our rural districts, we have many vacancies that no one applies for. And we said, that's the same thing that's happening with us. Mm-hmm. So lastly, just to share with you, so let's talk, what's it look like in our region? This survey was done by one of our superintendents for our December NECOS meeting. We said, okay, let's talk about CVES BOCES in our 16 school districts. At that time, there were 29 vacancies that we identified. There were 46 teachers within our BOCES, all of our component schools and CVES that are uncertified. In many cases, we're helping, and I know Mr. Slattery, we've helped a lot of our special ed teachers get certified. Many of them are teaching assistants who are filling in, who have bachelor's degrees. We're helping them get certified, and some we help get trained, and then they become excellent teachers, and then they
Go somewhere else.
They go to our components. So we're aware of that. Also 39 teaching assistants and aides, 2 administrative positions, 71 non-instructional vacancies, and 96 fewer substitutes. So that was just a little snapshot, and I'll share with you, as we've discussed in the innovation committee. Every one of the district superintendents sitting around that table, there are about 10 of us, said the same thing's true percentage-wise to their BOCES. So that's a huge, huge need, and it was interesting to share that information. And the other point, and I'll just back up for 1 second, if you look at that, one more time, maybe it's not, but if you look at those numbers that I shared, that's bigger than half, those number of vacancies. If those were filled staff members in one district, it would be more than half of our districts. So in other words, that's the equivalent of over that number of staff and individuals would make up a district that's more than half of our districts. So, and lastly, what were the points that they said, what are the asks? If these are federal legislators who are bringing information, I said, number 1, we're facing a significant teacher shortage. Number 2, federal support's needed. Why? Because the federal government can address this at the macro level. Yes, there's local and state, but it's also macro. We need support to help with the preparation, the pipeline, and recruit diverse teachers as well in high needs fields and underserved schools, especially in rural and urban settings. Many of the suburban districts aren't seeing the shortages that we have because they pay more. Said we need to ensure financial support for mental health of all our students and staff, ensure high quality broadband for students across the entire country, whether you're in rural America or you're in urban America or wherever, that regardless of zip code. Lastly, that we want to support, and we're asking for their support for the educators and school leaders, especially for initiatives that can help develop due to the improvements that we've made over the last 2 years, and how can we sustain that and move forward. And lastly, you'll see our core values, that students are our highest priority, and that addressing these shortages are going to be very critical as we move forward to ensure their successful future. So that was my PowerPoint that I shared. And it was, a positive experience, but I thought it was also worth walking through so the board can see and make you aware of it as well. So I thank you for that as well. And then just lastly, a couple other items. The spelling bee is coming up. Mrs. Campbell, Monday night, 5 o'clock, Stafford Middle School. So Mrs. Boyce, it'll be in your district's middle school. You had the champion last year. See if there's a repeat or a tri-peat. We also have some upcoming student recognition events. The Clinton County Top 10% Student Recognition Dinner has been canceled, but there is going to be a desire to still identify those students in Clinton County. Essex County traditionally has a recognition event too. We'll be discussing that tomorrow and keep the board aware. And also Mrs. Friedman, Mr. Slattery, we are having conversations about graduation this for the spring. We only have one, as I recall, Mr. Slattery, we only have one student who will be graduating from Mineville, and that student will be coming to Plattsburgh for the graduation. They have decided that they want to be part of the big graduation and make it part. So that's something, and so that's exciting. That'll be at the Guild's Auditorium at SUNY Plattsburgh. And Mrs. Friedman, we're also, as I understand it, having conversations about being back at the field house.
Yes, and back to Mariah Farm and go as well.
So we will keep you informed, and again, want to encourage our board members to consider. Lastly, for my superintendent's update, talking about board vacancies, we do have 8 potential vacancies. Many of our board members who are sitting have expressed interest in continuing, but we also know that we do have one of our component districts has nominated someone from Willsboro, who's a current board member there. So that information will be coming forward as well, but we still may have several vacancies that may not be filled. So we will potentially have some opportunities. I know Mrs. Sears, yourself, Mrs. LaRock as well. If that's something that you might consider continuing, we'd like to discuss those options with you, but again, keep the board informed and we will let you know. Kudos to Mrs. Rabideau, who's been really working and keeping that information flowing to our board of clerks and also the superintendents. So we wanted to at least acknowledge it and just say that our next board meeting would be April 13th, which is our annual meeting. We'll be presenting a final overview of the budget on the 13th of April. Sure.
Here,
Sure.
you can put your ankle bracelets for retention. You head to another district?
And one item too, and Mr. St. Pierre, President St. Pierre did acknowledge that in the past, we have normally had a RSA, a Rural School Association board member representative. I am on the board, but we traditionally, Linda Godney-Horn was our longstanding rural schools member. So if there's interest or if any board member would like to consider that, it's a very good board. I mean, we meet before the rural school. There's generally 2 or 3 meetings throughout the year. Some of it's virtual now, but we are meeting in person as well. We also host, the Rural School Association also hosts winter and spring conferences and then the summer conference. So if you have interest and you'd like to be happy to discuss it, the board traditionally has approved that nomination as well. And it's been very nice to have a representative from the board to be able to advocate for our region, but also for rural schools.
It'd be nice to maybe we could get someone at the next meeting, give you all time to think about it. So how many hours is someone committed to? How many meetings per year? Give us a overview.
Sure. Generally, there are quarterly board of director meetings. Traditionally, those meetings are held at the New York State School Boards Association building in Albany. Yeah, they are. We are doing a blend right now as well. So there's generally 4 to 5 board meetings a year. But it's generally a Friday night meeting, Friday afternoon, evening, and then a Saturday morning, and then everyone's gone generally by 11 o'clock. The second piece is the rural schools conference in the summer, and that's optional. But and we do make advocacy, recommendations that are from the board that actually help guide the Rural Schools Association and the really helping have those conversations with our legislators as well on the local, and state level.
Okay.
I'd also share that the Rural Schools Association also has involvement in the National Rural School Education Association. That's how I was asked to be part of the conversation for the briefing. So it is a great opportunity to have a conversation and be part of the decision-making, but also make recommendations that can, support rural education and our students across the state.
So we don't absolutely have to have a representative, but it's nice, it would be nice if someone's interested.
It's summer meeting is in Cooperstown.
Yeah, Cooperstown.
Yeah.
It's usually a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday thing.
Right.
I used to be the representative at one time.
Okay, and it's held at the Otasaga now.
Yeah. That's where it's been, I think, forever.
Forever, probably. Yeah. So next month, we can have a little more discussion. If someone's interested, we can go in that direction.
Yeah,
Okay?
please if you're interested, please let Mrs. Rabideau know, and myself, and we can let the board know as well. And have a discussion. That would be something the board could make the nomination, and then would also notify the other component districts as well. There hasn't been interest. I know Linda Godney-Horn was very well respected and actually received several years ago a statewide award for her decade plus of advocacy for rural.
If we have too many applications, we'll have to pull straws. A whole bunch.
Someone doesn't show up, gets the appointment.
That usually works too. That's been done.
So thank you.
All right. So are we done with that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're ready to move on to the consent agenda financial
I had a couple questions.
Approve the minutes.
Oh, go ahead, I got a question. Yeah, go ahead. Ed.
On Dr. Daly, your presentation, has there been any discussion or is there any appetite with the shortage to have some sort of mechanism to have a shared certification with, let's say, someone like another nearby state, if it's possible? I mean, especially where we are, could it pull people from Vermont if it was possible? I know that there are people that have been wanting to teach here that sometimes have a difficulty to come teach in New York.
Sure, and I'll share with you, that topic was discussed even yesterday yesterday morning at the New York State School Council Superintendents Workshop with Dr. Bill Murphy, the Deputy Commissioner, was talking about their efforts by the State Education Department to improve reciprocity. So if someone's is certified in teaching in another state, to be able to streamline the process. And we have, for example, had a teacher from Missouri who really had some challenges trying to get certified. But New York has not traditionally made it easy. There's been an effort to try to streamline that because of the high need. So the other piece that has been part of it, Mr. Mayor, and it's a great point, is that there are also a lot of individuals who had certification previously that has expired. For example, someone had a family, they moved out of the area, they got married and didn't ever complete their permanent certification. There is discussion with state ed to try to streamline that process as well for someone who had a certificate and now can reactivate it. So there have been some temporary measures that state ed has approved to try to allow individuals a 1 or 2 year certificate. So they have made it easier to, Mr. Bell, they have made it easier to make that happen. But I know the State Education Department is working to try to do that as well. So those are definitely points, and I want to give Mr. Bell and our team credit because we've worked very hard, Mr. Slattery especially as well, to try to work with the individuals who weren't certified or who needed a couple of steps in the process to get their certificates. So we've traditionally helped our teachers who needed extra help through the process, both in CTE as well as in special education. So that's something that we do work with very closely. But we also were talking again with state ed, and that was part of my conversation even on Tuesday at the conference with those leaders, is that we really need to be a little bit more out of the box thinking in terms of some of our initiatives to allow these qualified individuals to help get certified so we can move forward and help fill the vacancies.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Marin, for that question.
All right. So, so need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion for the minutes first.
Oh, we skipped one.
Motion.
Motion for the minutes. Second, Mr. Harriman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're moving on to the consent agenda. Need a motion? Motion by Mr. Murdoch, second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Harriman, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Okay, no old business to worry about, no action. Consent agenda personnel. Need a motion? Motion.
Second.
Second by Lisa.
Mr. Boyce.
Boyd. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. St. Pierre, could I just pause for 1 minute, that's the board? First of all, catch your breath from going through those two. And with that said, I want to acknowledge that we have a resignation for the purposes of retirement. Mrs. Deborah Geddes has worked at CV Tech and CVES for 31 years. She's done a great job. I'm going to ask Mrs. Friedman to just share a brief kudos with me as well, because it's our privilege to acknowledge her dedicated service, because she's done a wonderful job. Mrs. Friedman.
Thank you. I was really hoping you would remove this piece and say she can't go. She is a cornerstone of the division an exemplar an exemplar for the organization. She's dedicated 31 years of her life, to just really exquisite, dedicated work. And, I am super excited for her to move into this next chapter of her life. But she is one that is truly irreplaceable, and it will be sad to see her go, but her efforts on behalf of the organization are really immeasurable. So I wish her all the best.
Maybe Eric can get her to come out of retirement, one of his new hiring
Yes, that would
programs.
be awesome. These two can work on with staff, so they do that, but she really is amazing.
So thank you, Mrs. Friedman. And one other acknowledgement too, under the personnel action, one of your items that the board completed and approved was tenure for 6 different individuals. Andrea Denton, a teaching assistant, Heidi Wells, school counselor, Maya Giroux, teaching assistant, Todd Everett, teaching assistant, Ashley Prey, a teaching assistant, and Brianna Finnegan, a special education teacher. From an organizational point of view, approval of tenure is a very important decision. I've always said that it's $1 million decision. If once someone has tenure, their likelihood of staying within the organization for the rest of their career is very high. And so it acknowledges their high quality work as well as our desire to see them continue and to move forward. And I want to acknowledge our team, our administrators, for helping, provide proper evaluations, and to also acknowledge that these are individuals that we highly recommended for tenure. So I want to thank you for all that as well.
Megan, what you just handed me, does Ed have this also, or this?
He does, and I
Okay.
normally would put it at your seat, so I apologize.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure.
Copy, but
Because Ed, you're up next. I want to make sure you had your paperwork.
yeah, so we
Go for
have an addendum and
Yeah.
those two items
Yeah.
as well.
All right.
Two more you gotta approve on here too.
All right. Go ahead, Ed.
There's two more. You have your lead evaluator.
Yeah.
Certified.
Yeah.
No, on the actual agenda, the original one. Two more items.
Oh. Oh, yeah, okay, we do those first. The,
So it's
so-
19 and conclusion.
oh, yeah, it is. Certification of lead evaluator resolution. Motion. Second. Murdoch, second. Ms. Saunders. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There's the recertification of lead evaluation. Second motion by Mr. Murdoch, second, Mr. Harriman.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right, now we're back to the new stuff. Okay, Ed.
Yeah, we have recommended the board appoint Kay Sharrow to the 52-week civil service appointment.
Motion by Mr. Murdoch, second,
Second.
Mr. Harriman. All those in favor?
Uh,
Opposed? Carried.
Recommended the board accept the proposal submitted by Schoolhouse Construction Services.
Motion by Mr. Murdoch,
Second.
Mr. Harriman, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And if I could just pause for 1 minute and just acknowledge the good work that Schoolhouse Construction has continued to provide in leadership with our capital project. Mr. Bell has worked very closely with them, our O&M team have as well. And we're very honored and pleased to have them continue to work with us as we look at a phase 2 for our capital project. Thank you.
Okay, Ed.
Recommended the board appoint Sarah Paquette to the position of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer.
Motion. Murdoch, second. Wants to be second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And add one more other point for that and say that appointment of Ms. Paquette as our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer is part of our strategic plan initiative. And to be able to support this is an important area for CVES. So she's going to be working closely with Mrs. Campbell as well as our administrative team and staff and the board to help move and bring this promotion forward, which the board has taken a stand and felt is very important to move to support. So I want to thank Ms. Paquette and the other applicants who applied, because we did have a number internally, and thank our team for their support as well. Thank you.
One more.
Be here resolved that upon the recommendation of the district superintendent, the Board of Cooperative Educational Services hereby places a probationary employee on administrative leave.
Motion by
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Herman.
Second.
Who's the second? Lisa? Mrs. Boyce?
Kathy.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Is that it then?
I have one other thing.
Sure.
For all of the people who sit on school boards out in the hinterlands here, if you all don't know about the We Are Instrumental program, there's a Skidmore professor that lives down in Ticonderoga, who ended up in our community because he was a trailing spouse to the doctor that heads up the Hudson Headwaters primary care practice that they're expanding in Ticonderoga, and sent his children off to school in Ticonderoga a year ago in the fall. And they came home and said, "Hey, Dad, guess what they're playing for instruments in our band? They're playing kazoos instead of trumpets." He is a professor of music at Skidmore, and he is a world-renowned opera composer who, in case you have a chance to go to Radio City on Memorial Day this year, one of his works is premiering there. Very talented guy, and he just couldn't handle it. So he did an instrument drive in Saratoga down near Skidmore to get some instruments for the Ticonderoga schools. That was wildly successful. He partnered with a instrument repair firm down there in Saratoga who repaired and reconditioned all of these instruments, brought them up to tie, and the ensuing donations continue to go crazy. They have an internship program now where the folks down in Saratoga at the repair shop down there are teaching other people in our community to repair instruments. So they do a lot of the repairs Zoom online with students to bring them into some new skills there. And they have, at Tie Alliance, we are now housing rooms full of repaired and ready instruments, which they have, he has a program, independent study program with some students from Skidmore that have created a complete inventory of North Country schools and all of the instruments that they have, and all the instruments they have in excess of so they can share, and all of the instruments that they need. And they have already completed the inventories for Shazy, Peru, Mariah, Crown Point, and all these other schools. So if your schools have not taken advantage of the We Are Instrumental program, you can just contact me and we will put them in touch with Evan Mack, and he will make sure that they have a complete inventory. So we're working next week with all of their students on connecting music availability with rural communities. So he's got his whole team of students coming up to work in a bunch of the communities and doing sort of surveys of their cultural connections. And so there's other levels to this, but you got a kid anywhere in the North Country that needs an instrument, and we've got that instrument. There's strings, there's brass, there's horn, there's everything. Yeah,
That's excellent.
it's a fabulous program.
That's a great asset for our kids right there.
The day that there was a shop down in the Hudson area that had been in a music shop for like 4 generations. And the latest generation just couldn't do it anymore, so they decided to shut down the shop. Somehow Evan convinced them that they should donate their very large inventory of instruments. They did a complete, that was what got them to do the inventory of the entire region here. They did this inventory on the day that they were being delivered to the Ticonderoga School parking lot. There were 12 other school vans there with their music teachers. And what came out of this one van was like color coded for who it goes to. And they just, in 10 minutes, loaded it into every other van and sent those instruments, hundreds of them, out to those schools. It was really phenomenal. There is a Mountain Lakes PBS piece that was done on it. So you can go find that. It's called We Are Instrumental.
Oh, excellent, perfect. Nice to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure that you go back to your schools and mention it.
Yeah. Any teacher that's got a classroom that needs instruments, we've got those.
Good, great. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Murphy. Chairman.
Yes.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night now.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Well,